"Ma'am, I'm going to need you to leave your seat." Those were the first words Ariana Johnson heard from the flight attendant standing in front of her, arms folded, eyes sharp. She had a first-class ticket in her hand. Her boarding pass was scanned. But the reason she was being asked to move had nothing to do with airline policy and everything to do with who they thought she was. In less than 10 minutes, the cabin would witness something no passenger expects. The pilot being escorted out, a replacement taking the seat at the controls, and a system bending in ways it rarely does. But before that happened, Ariana had a choice: give in and disappear into silence, or hold her ground and watch the rules change. Where in the world are you listening from right now? Tell me in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss how this unfolds. Now, let's step onto that plane together. The first word struck like a slap you didn't see coming. "Ma'am, you need to move." This section is for our premium passengers. The flight attendant's voice traveled clean and sharp down the aisle of first class, slicing right through the hush of soft music and ice clinking in short glasses. Heads turned, buckles still. A few phones tilted just enough to catch what might happen next. Ariana Johnson looked up from her seat by the window. Seat 1 Ampere. Sun warmed her cheekbone and pooled along the sleeve of her slate blue blazer. She was 30, tall, relaxed. In that way, people are when they've already measured a day and decided it won't tell them who they are. She held up her boarding pass on the screen, the light reflected in her eyes. "First class," she said, voice steady. "Seat 1 Ampere." The attendant didn't look at the screen. She looked at Ariana. Blonde bob tucked neatly behind one ear. Smile tight as a seal on a jar you can't open. The little silver wings on her lapel gleamed. "There must be a mistake," the attendant said. "We don't have you on the first class list." Her name tag read Lauren. She said the words like, "a verdict," not a question. Across the aisle, a man in a navy sport coat leaned back to watch, performing concern for an audience. In row 2, a woman snapped her purse shut with a click and whispered to the man beside her. Another passenger lifted his phone to eye level, pretending to scroll. The lens had already found Ariana. "Would you like to check again?" Ariana asked. "Or bring the manifest?" Lauren's smile sharpened. "Ma'am, we can handle it. You're delaying the cabin. Please take your belongings and move to the back." "The back," Ariana repeated quietly, as if tasting the word for stones. "My belongings include the seat I paid for." A flight attendant from the galley poked his head around the bulkhead. He was younger, frenetic energy and stiff shoulders. "Everything okay up here?" he asked. But he was looking at Ariana too. The question wasn't a question. Lauren angled the tablet against her belly and tapped rapidly. The screen lit her face. She nodded to herself in a little rhythm, a dance of authority. "See here," she said. "It shows economy. You probably selected the wrong fare. It happens when people aren't familiar with the booking process." A woman in the front row lifted her chin, ready for the comfort of a simple story. "Wrong fare. Innocent mistake. No need to think too hard." Ariana's breath moved slowly through her nose. "I'm very familiar with the process," she said. "I booked 3 weeks ago. Direct confirmation. If there's a glitch, it's not on my end." Lauren made a sympathetic sound that wasn't sympathy. "Let's not make a scene. People worked hard to be here." A tiny pause hung in the air like dust revealed by a skylight. There it was, the little stone inside the glove. On the other side of the aisle, a gray-haired gentleman cleared his throat. "Miss," he said, polite as ancient furniture. "Maybe it's easier to switch for now. You can sort it out later." Ariana turned her head. She met his gaze and let the silence do its work. He dropped his eyes to his newspaper. The cabin vibrated with 100 unspoken things. The overhead bins hummed. The soft closed doors clicked. From somewhere aft, the scent of coffee drifted forward, roasted and bitter. Up front, the flight deck door stayed closed, a pale rectangle of authority. The boarding music reduced to a loop that no one actually hears until a moment like this, when it sounds like a socked foot sliding over carpet just before the stumble. "Ma'am." Lauren's voice tightened. "Final notice. Gather your items. The coach is waiting." Ariana unbuckled with a quiet metallic snap. She stood, smoothing her blazer with one hand. She did not rush. She did not plead. She did not perform anger for people who would only use it as proof. She lifted the small leather tote from under the seat and set it on the cushion. Inside, her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, thumbed to answer, turned slightly toward the window. "Hey, Mama," she said softly. "They're asking me to move. I'm fine." "Yes, I know." There was a pause. "No, don't come down. Just be ready." The call was brief. She ended it and returned the phone to the tote, as if she had simply tucked away a handkerchief. Lauren narrowed her eyes at the impression of that moment. "If you'll step into the aisle," she said, "we need to proceed with departure." Ariana stepped out, letting 2 passengers pass, then faced the attendant, not blocking, not retreating. The light from the window laid a bar across the floor between them. Somewhere in the main cabin, a child laughed at the sudden bell of children who still trust the world to be fair. The sound dropped away. A ground agent climbed the jetway and appeared in the doorway with the brisk walk of someone who never wants to be where trouble is, but always is. Her name tag read Monica. She took in the scene, first class. A black woman, standing calmly by seat 1 Ampere, a white attendant with her chin lifted, an aisle of faces, balancing curiosity with what they tell themselves is concerning. "What's the issue?" Monica asked. Lauren didn't look at Ariana. "Passenger seated in first without authorization. We've asked her to move. She's refusing." "I have authorization," Ariana said. "And documentation." Monica nodded without expression. "May I see your boarding pass, ma'am?" Ariana held out the screen. Monica leaned in to read, then compared the name to Ariana's ID. She slowly nodded again. "A cop at a 4-way stop." "It shows first class," she said. Lauren's smile went brittle. "She must have manipulated the app. It's more common than you think." Monica looked up. "Not at Ariana. At Lauren. Or the system synced late," she said. "It happens too." "Then fix the sync," Lauren said. "We're closing the door." Monica's gaze traveled the cabin, landing deliberately on the phones angled toward them. She lowered her voice, which somehow made every ear lean closer. "Let's take this at the door." There was movement, a careful migration to the threshold, where the carpet changes texture and the air shifts temperature, where the plane is still part of the world. Ariana kept her posture tall and unhurried. A man in row 3 tilted his head as she passed, measuring her watch, her shoes, the quiet iron in her eyes. The details didn't match the story he wanted. At the door, Monica cleared space, positioned herself between Ariana and the galley, the practiced choreography of containment. "Ma'am, policy allows us to reseat at the discretion of the crew. For today, that means, what behavior triggered a reseat?" Ariana asked. Her tone invited truth. Or exposed it. "Non-compliance with crew instruction," Lauren said too quickly. "I complied with every instruction," Ariana replied. "I presented documentation. I got out of the way. I did not raise my voice. I did not record anyone. I did not obstruct the aisle. What else would you like me to perform to qualify for the seat I purchased?" The galley lights hummed. The coffee machine clicked. Behind Ariana, the first-class cabin had become a quiet theater where everyone paid for front-row seats and then lied to themselves about wanting the show to end. Monica weighed the moment. "I can offer you a seat in the first row of the main cabin, extra legroom, complimentary beverage, and we'll process a refund of the fare difference at the gate," which admits an error without admitting an error, Ariana said. "Neat. Ma'am," Lauren said, voice cooling further, "if you continue to obstruct, We'll be forced to remove you from the flight for being disruptive." "Disruptive," Ariana repeated, as if noting a vocabulary word on a chalkboard. "Interesting." Monica's radio crackled softly against her hip. She pressed a finger to her earpiece, listening. "Copy," she murmured. Her eyes went to Ariana for the first time, like she was seeing her, not managing her. Some calculation shifted behind that gaze. Ariana reached into her tote and took out a leather folio the color of a remembered song. She didn't open it. She set it on the drink ledge beside the door. Her phone buzzed again. She checked the screen. The message was simple. She read it once and put the phone face down on the folio. Lauren's jaw tensed. "I need you to step off now. We can't wait any longer." "Of course," Ariana said, and stepped peacefully into the jetway. Phones in the cabin tilted further, chasing her as if she were a comet slipping past the frame. The pressure in the airplane shifted when the door opened, the small physical echo of a larger truth. The jetway air was cooler, edged with that metallic breath of recycled air and damp carpet. The window showed the wing like a white blade, the tarmac shimmering in heat. At the end of the jetway, a gate area waited with its own curious hush, an audience that didn't yet know it had purchased tickets. Monica followed. Lauren remained at the threshold, arms crossed, guarding the idea of something as much as a space. At the podium, Ariana stood with her hands at her sides. A couple seated near the window looked up from their snacks. A teenager raised a phone, then lowered it when Ariana's eyes met hers. "Name?" Monica asked, softer now. "Ariana Johnson." "Miss Johnson," Monica said, "I'm going to print your new seat assignment. You'll still arrive on time." Ariana smiled without warmth. "I'm not taking that seat." Monica exhaled. "Then I'll have to place you on the next flight." She looked at the line of small print on the boarding display, the gray utilitarian font that narrates the life of strangers. She looked back at Monica and spoke as if setting a teacup exactly in the center of a saucer. "In 10 minutes, she said, "you're going to receive a phone call. You're going to want to take it." Monica blinked. "From whom?" "From someone who signs your supervisor's evaluations," Ariana said. "The call will include instructions. You should follow them." Lauren had drifted forward from the doorway, drawn by the gravity of a tone she didn't recognize. "Is that a threat?" she asked, chin tilted. "It's a courtesy," Ariana said. A beat of silence. Somewhere a printer ground to life. A boarding pass slid out with a small sigh. A white tongue no one wanted to touch. Monica caught the eye of the other gate agent. "Hold the door," she said quietly. She turned back to Ariana. "Ma'am, what exactly is this about?" Ariana didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the folio and finally opened it. No showy spread of documents. One page. Heavy paper. Clean lines. She didn't hand it over. She let the edge be visible, the way you might let the corner of a letter peek from your pocket in a song where the chorus is restrained. Monica looked at that paper as if it were a mirror she wasn't ready to stand in front of. Lauren leaned in and then caught herself, as if proximity might stain her. Ariana closed the folio again. "We're almost done," she said. "I'd like to board on time." "On time was 5 minutes ago," Lauren muttered. "Then let's not waste the next 5, Ariana replied. The radio on Monica's hip snapped loud in the quiet. She pressed it to her ear and listened for a long second. 2, 3. Her posture altered one vertebra at a time. She glanced at Ariana, then at Lauren, then at the door of the aircraft where the flight deck remained sealed, small and sure, and suddenly, not the final word. "Understood," Monica said into the radio. She swallowed. "Yes, I'll bring her." She straightened and managed a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Miss Johnson, would you please step back onto the aircraft?" Lauren bristled. She was reassigned. Monica didn't look at her. "Not anymore." Ariana lifted her tote, the leather warm against her palm. She stepped toward the door, toward the soft carpet and the colder stairs. Before she crossed the threshold, she paused and glanced at the window where a slant of sun lay across the wing like a promise. Inside, the cabin had settled into the theater silence again. The passengers watched with the hunger of people who tell themselves they hate drama even as they lean forward to taste it. Ariana walked down the aisle to 1 Ampere, placed her bag beneath the seat, and Saturday, she buckled the belt with that small, clean sound of something clicking into its rightful place. Lauren stood at the galley panel, hand hovering near a button, eyes fixed on Ariana like the problem was breath itself. Monica murmured into the interphone, then hung it gently, as if any sudden move might wake a sleeping animal. The flight deck door stayed closed. For now, Ariana rested her palms on her thighs. Her phone vibrated once. She lifted it, read the single line that had arrived, and set it down again. The message was brief, and it ended with a period, as all serious things do. She turned her face to the window. The sun warmed the glass. The wing waited. Somewhere beyond the bulkhead, a pilot's voice would soon clear his throat and introduce himself, and the cabin would prepare to accept whatever story he handed them about time and weather and the shape of a journey. Ariana blinked, slow and calm. 10 minutes had begun. The first 2 minutes back in her seat were so still you could almost believe nothing had happened. Almost. Row 2 leaned forward like a row of sunflowers chasing light. The man in 2B glanced at Ariana's toe twice in 30 seconds, as though the leather itself might reveal how she'd forced her way back into first class. In 3 Ampere, a woman cupped her hand around her mouth, whispering to her seatmate with the rhythm of a gossip who wants to be overheard. The murmurs carried in ripples. She's got to be somebody. Or she's a scammer with nerves of steel. You saw the watch, right? Phones tilted again, this time more discreetly. The red dot of a recording app blinked from a partially closed tray table. A teenage boy in 4C messaged a friend. Thumbs flicking. Some drama up here. Black woman. First class. Crew's pissed. I don't know, but it's tense. Ariana adjusted the cuff of her blazer and looked out the window. Her reflection in the glass was a quiet mask, but the movement of her eyes gave her away, not to them, but to herself. She wasn't scanning the tarmac, she was counting. Lauren moved up and down the aisle like a guard who wanted the inmates to know she was watching. She bent toward the captain's door once, murmuring low. The door didn't open. She returned to the galley, but her head turned toward 1 Ampere twice on the way. The hum of the cabin seemed to deepen, like a low note held just under the hearing range. It was the sound of curiosity thickening into suspicion, and then the first oddity. The overhead speaker popped not with the captain's voice, but with a brief, clipped exchange between ground operations and the flight deck. Something about cross-check manifest data and confirm personnel chain. Most passengers ignored it. Ariana didn't too. Her phone vibrated in her lap. She didn't look at it immediately. She let the vibration finish, took one breath, then lifted it. The message was from a number stored without a name. Conference rooms live. 10 minutes from your word. She slid the phone face down and folded her hands over it. Lauren appeared beside her row again, her smile missing entirely this time. Would you like a drink while we wait? Ariana looked up. You think we're waiting? Lauren didn't answer, just adjusted the collar of her uniform and moved on. Across the aisle, a man in 1B gave a little snort, the kind that says, I'm not involved, but I'm definitely judging. He pulled out earbuds, glanced back toward the galley, and muttered something Ariana couldn't catch. His seatmate's reply was clearer. I'll bet she's recording all of it. The murmur looped through the cabin again, now carrying more edge than curiosity. Each whisper seemed to feed the next. A woman 2 rows back texted a friend. She's not moving. Crew's acting weird. Could be famous? At the far end of the cabin, Monica stepped inside from the jetway, a phone pressed to her ear. Her eyes swept the rows until they landed on Ariana. She stopped mid-aisle, said something into the phone, and then turned to look toward the cockpit. The captain's door stayed shut. From behind that door came another murmur over the interphone, urgent enough that Lauren straightened instantly. Her gaze flicked from the door to Ariana, then back. She didn't like whatever she'd just heard. The cabin felt like a chessboard, where the next move was already decided, just not by the players everyone thought were in control. Ariana picked up her phone and began typing. Slow and deliberate. Confirm readiness. Initiate on my signal. She hit send. The screen went dark. Out on the tarmac, a shadow crossed the wing. A fuel truck rolled past, but Ariana's eyes didn't follow it. She was listening to the whisper of Lauren's shoes on the carpet, to Monica's voice lowering to a near whisper, to the stuttered tap of a man's fingers on a phone 2 rows behind. The 10 minutes were already counting down. Ariana kept her hands folded on her lap as if she were simply a woman waiting for a beverage cart. The plane's air moved over her skin in a cooled hush. She glanced at the window, then at the aisle, then at Lauren's tight shoulders. Calm could be a blade if you knew how to hold it. From the galley, Monica tried again with the interphone, her voice low. The captain didn't answer, or maybe he did, and what he said made her sway almost imperceptibly before she steadied herself. She set the receiver down very carefully, like someone returning a hot pan to its burner. Ariana lifted her phone. "Don't even think about recording," Lauren said at once, too loud. "I'm calling my mother," Ariana replied, voice mild. She pressed the phone to her ear. It rang, once, twice, then a click. "Mama, it's me," Ariana said. "You're live on speaker? Good." Monica's head turned. A man in row 2 mouthed the word mother, as if he'd expected something flashier. Some Hollywood fixer. Or a snarling attorney. He couldn't picture a mother as the person you called when the room needed to stop lying to itself. Ariana didn't raise her voice, but the cabin leaned toward her anyway. "We're still at the gate," she said. "The crew tried to reseat me. They've changed their position twice in 5 minutes." On the line, the voice was older velvet, southern and steel threaded through. "Are you safe?" "I am," Ariana said. "I'm in 1 ampere. Is the door closed?" "Not yet." "Then stay put." The older voice paused, then, "Hand the phone to the ground supervisor." Monica startled, as if the voice had looked directly at her out of the air. For a heartbeat, she seemed ready to say something about policy and channels. Then she stepped forward and took the phone. She did not put it to her ear. She held it a few inches away, like it might see her face. "This is Monica," she said. The voice on the line asked her 2 questions, simple ones. Monica answered, and in answering hurt herself. Her eyes flicked toward Lauren, who had placed both hands on the galley counter as if bracing for turbulence. "Thank you," the voice said. "Stay with my daughter." Monica handed the phone back, a tiny tremor in her fingers. Ariana didn't end the call. She set the phone on her palm, speaker up. "Mama, you're on." "Then hear me clearly," the voice said. Even softened by the phone's tiny speaker, it filled the front cabin with the sound of someone who had long ago gotten comfortable making decisions that affected other people's days and payrolls and futures. "My daughter purchased a first-class seat. She will keep it. While I appreciate the workload of your staff, I do not appreciate the lack of respect shown. We will address it fully. But not by humiliating her further today. No titles, no resume. Just the clean edge of authority that doesn't need an introduction." Lauren's mouth opened, and then shut. In row 3, the woman who'd been whispering earlier lowered her chin. "Who is she?" she breathed to her seatmate, but the question didn't sound like gossip anymore. It sounded like recognition slowly finding its footing. The older voice returned to Ariana. "Where's the pilot?" "In the flight deck," Ariana said. "Ask him to join us." Lauren gave a brittle laugh. "The captain is preparing for departure. He's not available to entertain personal calls." Ariana's eyes didn't move to Lauren. "Monica?" Monica held Ariana's gaze, then lifted the interphone again. "Captain." We need you at the forward door. Now. Please. Silence. A beat. 2. The door stayed closed. Lauren folded her arms. Copy, Monica said tightly into the phone and hung it up. Ariana raised the phone toward her mouth. You heard. I did, her mother said. He'll come. How? A small exhale over the line. Because certain people are hearing from me right now, and from people who are accustomed to hearing from me. Lauren tried a different tack. Ma'am, she said to Ariana, voice pitched for patience, we follow procedure for a reason. There are protocols, chain of command. If we make an exception for you, we have to make exceptions for everyone. An exception is what you offered when you told me to take the first row of coaches, Ariana said. I'm asking for what I paid for. From behind them, a deeper, unfamiliar voice entered the quiet, like a door opening on a cold day. What seems to be the problem? He asked. The pilot stood in the galley entry, cap under his arm, uniform crisp, mid-50s, confidence worn like a second skin. He took inventory with a glance. Ariana, calm. Monica, composed but tight around the mouth. Lauren, arms crossed, righteous and uneasy, a field of faces pretending to look elsewhere. Monica straightened as if her spine had been pulled up by a string. Captain, she said, we need to verify the seating situation up front. The pilot's eyes settled on Ariana, then slid past her to the phone in her hand. We don't conduct passenger business on personal devices, he said. Ariana angled the speaker toward him. Captain, this is my mother. He began a practice sentence about policy and security and interference with crew duties. He did not finish it. The voice from the phone interrupted, gentle as rain and capable of moving a river. Captain, my name is Eleanor Johnson. The name did nothing for most of the cabin. It moved Monica like a tide. Lauren's eyes flickered. I believe you've met some of my colleagues, the voice continued, though perhaps not under that name. The pilot blinked. A small recalibration passed across his face. He did not say yes. He did not have to. You have a situation on your aircraft involving my daughter, Eleanor said. You also have a situation at your headquarters. I suggest, respectfully, that you step out of the flight deck while we clarify both. The captain's jaw worked once. His eyes went to Monica, then to the phones angled up from trays and half-zipped bags. He nodded. A fraction. Very well, he said. 5 minutes. Eleanor's voice, dry. You'll need less. He moved closer. Miss Johnson, I'm sure we can resolve this without escalating. Ariana studied him. The name tag, the careful shoes, the caution in his voice. It escalated when I was told to go to the back, she said quietly. His gaze flinched, then held. I wasn't present for that. No, Ariana said. But you're present now. He had the decency to accept that. Let's see your documents. Ariana handed him the phone first. Not that, he said. It's the only document that matters at the moment, she replied. Something on the other end of the line clicked the small, unmistakable sound of a conference room going live. You could hear the air change even over a tiny speaker. Eleanor's voice was joined by others, not interrupting, simply arriving. A dozen greetings that weren't quite greetings. Chairs scraped. A door shut with the firmness of expensive hinges. Captain, Eleanor said, you're on speaker in a room you don't want to imagine. Here's what we know. A paying first-class passenger was told to surrender her seat. She complied with every instruction, provided documentation, and was still treated as if she did not belong. That will be addressed at the appropriate levels. Right now, we are deciding whether this aircraft departs with you or without you. No threats, no theatrics. The sentence was simply set down between them like a file folder. The captain's face reddened along the collar. With respect, you can't remove a pilot moments before departure because a passenger doesn't like a seat assignment. Correct, Eleanor said. But shareholders, can require that an airline follow its own emergency protocols when there is a material incident related to passenger safety and corporate risk, and you're living inside one. Ariana did not look at the faces around her, but she could feel the shift. People who had been waiting to be entertained were suddenly awake. The pilot glanced toward the flight deck door, as if it might rescue him. It did not move. Monica's radio chirped. A quick, urgent burst. She listened. Her eyes widened, then settled with something like relief. She lowered the radio and, to the captain, said softly, "Sir, operations is requesting you step off for a phone call." He stared at her. Now, she said. He set his cap on the counter as if setting down a shield. "I'll be right back," he told the cabin at large. It sounded hollow. He took 2 steps toward the door. Ariana's phone transmitted Eleanor's last line to follow him down the aisle like a shadow. "Thank you for your professionalism." When he was gone, the plane did not exhale. The hush stayed, pulled tight. Lauren spoke into the space he left, brittle again. "Ma'am, whatever you think is happening, it won't change how we operate." "It already has," Ariana said. Lauren's chin tipped up. "And what are you?" she asked, a smile sharp enough to cut. "Some kind of influencer?" Ariana looked at her without blinking. "I'm someone whose mother taught her the difference between asking nicely and being treated as if you were never invited in the first place." Monica moved between them, not unkindly. She addressed Ariana, but her words were for the whole front cabin. "Miss Johnson, please remain seated. Do not engage with anyone other than me. I will keep you informed." "Thank you," Ariana said, and meant it. Down the jetway, the captain's voice could be heard in faint contours, not words. The shape of a conversation you wish was private. He was doing the thing men do when they have always been in the room. He was figuring out what it felt like to be at the door. A young attendant slipped forward with a tray, hands trembling just enough to make the ice breathe in the glasses. He stopped at 1 ampere. "Sparkling water," he whispered, and set it down, as if it were an apology. "Thank you," Ariana said again. He did not move, his voice barely there. "For what it's worth," he said, eyes fixed on a neutral point in space. "I saw your pass when you first showed it. It said what you said it said." "For what it's worth," Ariana replied. "I know." He blinked. A flash of relief warmed his face. Then he vanished toward the galley. 2 more minutes slipped by, the kind that stretch and thin until they hum. Ariana's phone pulsed once. She didn't lift it. She didn't need to. She already knew what it would say. Footsteps returned in the jetway. The captain reappeared, but there was nothing familiar in his stride now. He looked at Monica first, not at Ariana. "I've been asked to step off," he said. His voice had lost its right angles. Monica nodded. "Another captain is en route." Lauren's face went white under perfect makeup. "They can't just swap command like it's a seat change." "They can," Monica said, and for the first time there was something like certainty in her tone. "They just did." The pilot placed his cap back on his head with careful dignity. He looked at Ariana and opened his mouth, then closed it and looked away. He turned and walked down the jetway without touching the walls. No one applauded. The quiet was too full for that. Ariana lifted the phone at last. "Mama, I'm here," Eleanor said. "Thank you. You'll thank me later," her mother said. "Right now, stay calm and let the system do its work." Ariana smiled into the receiver, small and private. "I have been. Good. We'll speak again, before pushback." The line clicked. The call ended cleanly, with a finality that felt like a door closing somewhere far above the tarmac. Lauren swallowed, the sound audible in the hush. Monica stepped forward, and with something like ceremony, took 2 steps to Ariana's row. "Miss Johnson," she said, the honorific deliberate, "can I bring you anything while we wait for the new flight crew?" "I'm fine," Ariana said. "But someone in row 2 looks a little thirsty." The man in 2B jerked like a puppet, seeing its strings. Then, to his credit, he laughed once under his breath, a cracked sound, and looked down at his hands. Ariana turned to the window. The wing was still there, white and patient. A ground crew member walked beneath it, pausing to glance up at the sky, as if checking whether the weather had changed its mind. The sun slid along the plexiglass and laid across Ariana's wrist like a warm promise. Behind her, the cabin relearned how to breathe. Bits of conversation rose and fell. More careful now, less sure of their own rightness. The girl in row 4 typed a message to a friend and then deleted it and typed another. The woman in 3 leaned back and closed her eyes, not in sleep, but in thought. Monica spoke into the interphone, voice level. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We will be delayed a few minutes while we complete a crew change. We appreciate your understanding." No one cheered. No one groaned. For once, the plane agreed on something. They were watching more than a delay. They were watching a story reroute itself in real time. Ariana set the phone on the armrest and folded her hands again. The 10 minutes were almost up. What came next would not be loud. It would be exact. The hum in the cabin had changed. It wasn't the white noise of an idle plane anymore. It was charged, like the static before a summer storm. Every person in first class was awake to the fact that whatever was happening had climbed over the barrier of ordinary travel drama and was now moving somewhere higher or deeper. Monica stayed in the forward galley, speaking into her radio, with a tone that was polite on the surface and surgical underneath. Ariana caught the phrases "confirmed priority override" and "district manager looped in." They weren't the usual airline euphemisms meant to soothe passengers. They were the language of someone moving pieces inside a system. In the main cabin, a few people craned for a better look. One man in a baseball cap stood in the aisle until the junior attendant told him he needed to sit for operational reasons. He sat, but his phone stayed raised above his head like a periscope. Ariana sipped the sparkling water the young attendant had brought her. Her phone was dark now, but she didn't need it to see what was unfolding. She could read it in Monica's posture, in the quick glances Lauren threw toward the jetway, in the unusual quiet of the gate beyond the open door. From the far end of the jetway, a tall man in a slate suit appeared. He wasn't wearing airline colors, and his gait was too measured for a gate agent on a schedule. He paused to show credentials to the ground crew before stepping inside. Monica straightened immediately. "Mr. Landry," she said. Not loud, but enough for Ariana to hear. "Status?" Landry asked. His eyes scanned the cabin, found Ariana in 1 ampere, and lingered for a beat too long to be casual. "Crew change is in progress," Monica said. "Original captain removed per HQ request. The passenger remains in the assigned seat." Lauren stepped forward. "Sir, this is being blown out of proportion. We have procedures." Landry held up a hand, cutting her off without looking at her. "Procedures are what I'm here to review." His voice was calm, even warm, but it had the kind of weight that made people stop talking mid-sentence. He took a step toward Ariana's row. "Miss Johnson," he said, "I'll be overseeing the remainder of this flight on behalf of the operations board." "That's one way to describe it," Ariana said. Landry inclined his head. "You may have noticed our standard process has been amended." From the galley, Monica's radio crackled. "Boardroom confirms, proceed with activation." Landry gave a single nod, like a chess player moving a knight. Then he pulled out a slim tablet from his leather portfolio and opened a secured file. Lauren shifted in place. "Sir, I don't see how." "You don't need to see," Landry said, his tone still mild. "You need to remain available." The tablet screen glowed in the dim cabin light, and Ariana caught just enough to see her own name, the flight number, and the word priority governance stamped in red across the top. Landry didn't ask Ariana for her side of the story. He didn't need it. Instead, he began sending short, precise messages from the tablet. The kind that are less about communication and more about setting chains of action in motion. In the space of a minute, Ariana watched the system shift, not in the dramatic, movie-style way with alarms and announcements, but in the small signals. Monica's eyes narrow as she reads something on her own screen. Lauren stiffening when her company phone buzzed, then going pale. A gate agent outside the door picked up the desk phone and spoke quickly before glancing toward the aircraft. The machinery wasn't visible to most passengers, but Ariana could feel it moving. She leaned back and spoke just loud enough for Landry to hear. "I take it we're past the stage of persuasion?" Landry smiled faintly. "We're past the stage where anyone in this building thinks this is a seating dispute." Lauren's phone buzzed again. She looked down, blinked, then hurried into the galley. She didn't come back for several minutes. The interphone rang once. Monica answered, listening intently, then hung up. She stepped to Ariana's seat. "Miss Johnson, I've been asked to inform you that the operations board has assumed oversight of this flight's personnel decisions for the remainder of the trip." "And by personnel decisions," Ariana said, "you mean flight crew assignments, gate operations, and any further customer interactions?" Ariana smiled slightly. "Then let's keep everyone comfortable while the system does its work." Beyond the open door, a replacement captain appeared younger, purposeful, wearing the uniform like it still meant something. The jetway grew quieter as ground staff leaned in, catching bits of the unfolding reconfiguration. Inside, the passengers were piecing together their own version of events. In row 2, the man who'd been skeptical now leaned toward his seatmate and whispered, "Something big just happened." He wasn't wrong. The game board had shifted, and Ariana wasn't even moving the pieces herself anymore. She just sat there in 1 ampere, the calm in the middle of a system realigning around her. The replacement captain stepped into the galley with a nod that said he knew he had walked into a room mid-sentence. He introduced himself quietly to Monica, then looked once toward 1 ampere, not curious, just aware. He vanished into the flight deck, leaving the door open a breath longer than usual. The air shifted. Across the aisle, the man in 2B straightened like a student trying to remember the answer. "Did they just switch pilots?" he whispered. His seatmate didn't reply. She was watching Ariana the way people watch the tide, convinced it's moving even when it looks still. Monica's screen lit up again. A new note slid across. She read, blinked, read again. When she looked at Ariana, her posture softened by a degree. Not friendliness, recognition. Lauren reappeared from the galley, pale around the mouth. She held her company phone as if it had grown heavier. "Operations needs me," she told Monica without eye contact, and stepped back through the curtain. The metal clip clicked shut behind her. Beyond the door, a ground agent picked up the desk phone and didn't bother to lower her voice. "Yes, they invoked the clause," she said. Yes, that clause. The agent's eyes cut toward the aircraft like it might answer a question. In 3 ampere, the whispering woman stopped whispering. "I know that voice," she said under her breath, thinking of the speakerphone moment, the older velvet that carried steel. The name sat on the edge of her mind, stubborn and bright. A junior attendant moved through first class with a tray and a professional smile. His hands had stopped trembling. He poured water as if the simple act could anchor a room. "Anything else for you?" he asked Ariana. "I'm good," she said. "Thank you for asking." He nodded, grateful for the permission to be human. Monica's radio crackled again. The message was shorter this time. She listened, then turned to Landry. "Boardroom requests confirmation of the change." "Confirmed," Landry said. He didn't look up from the tablet. His thumbs moved in clean, unfussy motions. Each tap seemed to drop a stone into a still pond, and the ripples ran in lines instead of circles. Outside, the gate area was filling with the quiet turbulence of news spreading without a headline. People stood with snacks paused halfway to their mouths. The word shareholder floated once, then again, then stuck. Inside, the realization arrived, by degrees. Not a single gasp, a settling. The man in 2B leaned forward. "She's somebody's daughter," he said, as if that solved part of the math. It did. It didn't solve all of it. Monica glanced toward the jetway. A woman in a dark suit stood there, speaking softly into an earpiece. She wore the calm of someone used to walking into rooms where everyone else had already decided what could and couldn't be done. She handed Monica an envelope. "For you," she said. "For records." Monica opened it and slid out a single printed page. The logo at the top was familiar from news stories, not from her work life. The text was brief. She read once. She read again, slower. Landry didn't need to see it. He already knew what it said. She returned the page to the envelope and tucked it under the counter, as if paper could be kept from changing air. Lauren came back through the curtain. The sharpness was gone from her voice. "We're taking a break from service," she announced to no one in particular. It sounded like surrender that had not yet learned the word. Ariana sat with her hands folded around a cup that no longer held anything. She felt the plane finding a new center. The moment didn't taste like triumph. It tasted like truth, finally getting a turn at the microphone. A man from the main cabin drifted forward, stopped at the soft edge where the premium carpet begins. He didn't cross it. "What happened?" he asked the junior attendant, not unkindly. "Operational change," the attendant said. "We'll be underway shortly." "That's not what I asked." The attendant looked down at the tray. "Sir, everything you need to know is that we're doing the right thing, and we're doing it now." The man nodded, chastened by gentleness, and stepped back into his row. Monica's radio spoke again, not a crackle this time, a clear sentence. She raised it to her ear, then held it out to Landry. He listened, eyes steady, then handed it back. "Gate announcements in 2 minutes," he said. Passengers in first class sat a little straighter. People who live orderly lives know the sound of order returning. The woman in 3 Ampere snapped her fingers softly as the name finally surfaced. "Eleanor Johnson," she whispered. That's who it was. Her seatmate blinked. "From the news last year. She runs that conglomerate," the woman said. "I watched her testify before Congress, measured, dangerous in the way only calm people are." The name moved forward and back, like a small current. No shouting. Just the soft pressure of recognition filing itself under facts. Monica stepped to 1 Ampere. "Miss Johnson," she said, voice carefully even. "We'll close the door shortly. The new captain is reviewing the log." Ariana nodded. "Appreciate the update." Monica hesitated. Then, low enough to be private, "Your mother is doing a lot at once." "She usually is," Ariana said. A tone sounded on the gate desk. The woman in the dark suit lifted the microphone. Her voice drifted up the jetway, warm and professional. "Attention at the gate. Thank you for your patience. We're making a crew adjustment to ensure an on-time and respectful departure. Boarding will conclude shortly." No specifics. The right nouns. The word that slid in like oil on water. Respectful. "Your mother is Eleanor Johnson?" The name came out soft, as if saying it too loudly might trigger something. Ariana regarded her for a beat. "She is," Lauren swallowed. "I didn't know." Ariana held her gaze. "You didn't ask." Lauren looked down. "I shouldn't have needed to." "That's right," Ariana said. From the flight deck, the replacement captain's voice finally reached the cabin. "Good afternoon, folks. This is your captain. We'll be pushing back shortly. Thank you for your patience while we made a few adjustments. I'll have you in the air as soon as we can." His tone carried no drama. The room let out a breath. It hadn't admitted it was holding. Ariana's phone vibrated once. She turned it over. A short line from her mother. "Board set. We proceed." She set the phone down with a touch that looked like reverence and felt like responsibility. At the galley, Landry finished a last note and closed the tablet. He met Monica's eyes. "Ready, ready," she said, and meant it this time. Outside the door, a ramp agent raised 2 fingers to the cockpit window. The tug driver gave a small salute. The jetway pulled back with a sigh, the kind that always feels like leaving home and heading toward a story. In row 2, the man who had been sure of everything at the beginning of the hour folded his newspaper with care. "I was wrong," he said to no one, which is the first true sentence some people say all day. The wheels began to roll. The cabin murmured with the tiny choreography of departure. Headphones, belts, a last text, a last look at the light through the oval window. Ariana watched the wing cut the afternoon into clean shapes. She could already see the next move, but she didn't reach for it. Not yet. As the plane angled away from the gate, a final ripple came through the interphone. People in rooms far from this runway had connected the dots. The clause had been triggered. The board was live. The system was done pretending this was small. Lauren steadied herself with one hand on the galley counter. When she spoke, it was barely above a whisper. "What happens now?" Ariana turned her face toward the aisle. "Now," she said, "people start telling the truth to the rooms that matter." "And us?" Lauren asked. "What do we do?" "Your job," Ariana answered. "But better." The nose swung toward the taxiway. The sun washed the cabin in clean gold. In 4C, the teenager lowered his phone and just looked for once, really looked, as if he'd realized he was living through a moment he might tell someone about someday. The seatbelt sign chimed. The replacement captain's voice returned, calm and practiced. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure." Monica secured the galley with movements that had their own kind of grace. She turned toward the cabin and paused at 1 ampere. "We'll talk after takeoff," she said gently. "We will," Ariana replied. The plane gathered itself, a long animal waking. The runway stretched out in a bright, clean line. At the back of the operation, doors were already opening into rooms where apologies would be drafted and old rules would be pried up like floorboards. Up front, Ariana rested her head against the window and closed her eyes, not to escape, but to listen better. The engines rose, the ground fell away. And in the climb, a dozen realizations snapped into place across the airline like a string of lights finding power. They weren't done, not by a long climb. The nose lifted, the ground dropped away, and the cabin tilted into that brief weight-shifting moment between earth and sky. Ariana kept her head turned toward the window, eyes half-lidded, letting the motion fold around her. She wasn't thinking about the view. She was thinking about who was watching this flight from the ground and which of them were already recalculating their positions. Lauren moved through the aisle with the beverage cart, her pace slower than before. There was no brittle cheer now, only quiet, almost deferential focus. In first class, every cup was offered like a peace treaty. The man in 2B took his coffee without meeting her eyes. The woman in 3 ampere did, but hers held a new kind of interest curiosity wrapped around caution. In the galley, Monica poured sparkling water for herself, the glass catching the cabin light. Landry stood nearby, reviewing a short list on his tablet. He had the unhurried posture of someone who knew every message on that list was being acted on in real time. When the chime sounded for 10,000 feet, Ariana's phone vibrated. She picked it up, shielding the screen from view. A new message from her mother. Boardroom monitoring live. Outcome expected before descent. She put the phone face down again and took a slow breath. The hum of the engines filled the silence. From the main cabin, a voice drifted forward, not loud, but insistent. A passenger was asking a question about the incident. The junior attendant murmured something about crew adjustments and moved on. Monica stepped to Ariana's row, crouching slightly so her voice wouldn't carry. HQ confirmed. Your original captain is off the manifest. The official reason will be operational fitness, but we both know that's not the truth. Ariana smiled faintly. Sometimes a lie is the easiest way to tell the truth in public. Monica tilted her head, a trace of respect in her eyes. You've done this before. Not here, Ariana said. But I understand systems. They don't like to bend. They like to snap back. The trick is to hold them right where they stretched. In the row behind, 2B was clearly listening. He glanced between the two women, then out the window, as if checking whether the altitude had changed the air between them. The drink service continued. Landry moved to the forward jump seat, making a brief note in what looked less like an airline log and more like a legal record. Every so often, his gaze flicked to Ariana, not to monitor, but to confirm. 20 minutes into the climb, the replacement captain's voice came over the intercom. "Folks, we've settled in at cruising altitude. The weather looks smooth all the way to our destination. Sit back and relax. We'll take care of the rest." In 3 Ampere, the woman leaned forward, her voice low. "Miss Johnson, you know the whole plane is going to tell this story when we land." "That's fine," Ariana said without looking back. "The important part is who they tell it to." Lauren passed by again, setting down a small dish of warm nuts. "Compliments of the flight," she said, not quite making eye contact. Ariana picked one up, rolling it between her fingers before eating it. "Thank you." Monica lingered at the galley curtain, radio in hand. The static broke, then a voice, "Proceed," with secondary. She listened, glanced at Landry, and gave the smallest nod. Landry rose from the jump seat, slid the tablet back into his case, and leaned toward Monica. "When she's ready," he said, "bring her the printout." Ariana heard it, but didn't react. She just kept looking out at the endless stretch of white and blue, the thin line where the earth curved away. Whatever the secondary was, it wasn't about her seat anymore. It was about something that would still matter when the wheels hit the runway. And from the faint smile tugging at the corner of Ariana's mouth, she already knew exactly what was coming next. Cruising altitude held steady. The seatbelt sign glowed. The cart rattled softly at the curtain, as if even the metal knew to keep its voice down. Ariana kept her gaze on the window. Clouds looked like a continent of quiet animals. Beneath the hush, the system kept moving. She could feel it, like a river under ice. Monica reappeared at 1 Ampere with a single sheet inside a clear sleeve. No stack, no theatrics. She slid it to the corner of Ariana's tray, as if placing down a playing card that ends a game. "Per request," Monica said. Landry stood a step back, hands folded. Lauren lingered near the galley, pretending to check service inventory that did not need checking. Ariana kept her fingertips on the edge of the sleeve, not pulling it closer yet. "Who else has this?" "Operations," Monica said. "And the room you think it is." Ariana glanced up. "Good." She drew the page toward her, thick stock. The header did not shout, but it carried weight. She read the title once, then let the words sit there where everyone could see them if they dared. Shareholder Governance Addendum, Section 14, Ownership Clause. The air sharpened. The man in 2B leaned so far forward his belt caught. The woman in 3 Ampere breathed out a single small sound. Lauren did not move. Ariana read, steady and clean. In the event of a material incident affecting passenger dignity and corporate risk, any director or appointed proxy of a qualifying shareholder may exercise immediate oversight over personnel and operational decisions related to the incident. A qualifying shareholder is defined as an entity holding no less than 25% equity. She looked up, met Lauren's eyes, then Landry's. 27, Ariana said. That is the number, 27%. Landry inclined his head, neither proud nor apologetic. Confirmed. Qualifying shareholder. The man in 2B repeated under his breath, as if rolling the phrase in his mouth would make it smaller. Monica stayed still. Her radio remained silent for once, as if the frequency itself had learned respect. Ariana tapped the next paragraph. Appointed proxy may act on behalf of the qualifying shareholder to remediate the incident in real time. Actions may include, but are not limited to, crew reassignment, gate operations changes, and immediate directives to senior management. She lifted her eyes again. That is why your original captain left the aircraft, not because anyone wanted a spectacle, because the clause exists for days exactly like this one. Lauren's cheeks flushed and then drained. You were going to pull that no matter what I did. Ariana shook her head. Number, I was going to sit in 1 ampere and let you do your job. All I did was refuse to move. The clause pulled itself when you made it bigger than a seat. The replacement captain's voice drifted from the flight deck. Cabin crew, when able, prepare for service. Calm, practiced. A promise that the sky did not have to be dramatic to be safe. Landry lifted a small notepad. For the record, he said, quiet enough that only the first 2 rows could hear. Miss Johnson is an appointed proxy. Her authority is valid and active. Lauren looked at Monica, then at Landry. You just hand that kind of power to a passenger. You hand that kind of power, Ariana said, to the person you blame when things go wrong. That is what ownership is. Accountability with receipts. Monica's mouth twitched, a ghost of a smile. The kind you give the truth you wish you had said first. Ariana slid the page back into the sleeve and rested her palm on it. Call my mother. Monica touched the interphone and nodded toward 1 ampere. Connected. Ariana lifted the handset and pressed it to her ear. Mama. I'm here. The voice carried that same velvet and steel, now softened by the ambient white noise of another room. She did not sound tired. She sounded inevitable. We're on a cruise, Ariana said. They brought me Section 14. I wrote Section 14, Eleanor replied. Read me what you see. Ariana did. Not because Eleanor needed to hear it, but because the cabin needed to hear her reading it. Her voice did not rise. It did not tremble. It filled the space between the rows with the calm that annoys people who build their power on volume. Eleanor listened. Then she spoke, not to Ariana only. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for intruding on your flight. My name is Eleanor Johnson. My companies hold 27% of this airline. I am speaking now because my daughter was told she did not belong where she had paid to sit. I am speaking because too many people have been told the same thing and had to swallow it. Not today. Heads turned, unashamedly now. Even the flight attendants in the galley stopped mid-reach. Eleanor continued. The captain who left your aircraft has not been condemned. He has been removed from this flight, so we can review whether his judgment served the dignity of our passengers and the risk profile of our company. He will receive due process. My daughter will receive her seat, and you will receive a safe, respectful journey. She paused. The cabin was a held breath. Monica, Eleanor said. Are you there? Yes, ma'am, Monica answered. Steady. Thank you for keeping the temperature down while the room upstairs warmed up, Eleanor said. Please confirm the crew change in the log. Then bring Miss Johnson the second document. Monica glanced at Landry. He was already sliding another sleeve from the leather portfolio. This one carried the same quiet weight. No logo, just a title line. Monica laid it on Ariana's tray. Per instruction, she said. Ariana lifted the corner. The page read like a key in a lock. Interim directives, she said. Effective immediately. Lauren took one small, involuntary step forward. Ariana read the first line. Crew training update. Bias recognition. Required hours. Independent provider. She read the next. Anonymous reporting channel. External audit. She read the third. Incident review. Not by the crew involved. She stopped and looked up. This is not punishment. This is repair. In 3 ampere, the woman who had named Eleanor earlier let out a long breath. Finally, she said. Not loud. Not for show. The word landed like a shoulder unclenching. Landry addressed the 2 attendants near the galley. You'll receive your schedules for the training as soon as we land, he said. This is not a penalty. It is an investment. Take it that way. The junior attendant nodded. Yes, sir. Lauren said nothing. Her jaw worked. Then she said, barely audible, I thought I was protecting the cabin. Protecting the cabin, Ariana said. Would have been checking the pass I held out. Lauren's eyes filled and did not spill. The shame was quiet, the way real shame often is. Eleanor's voice returned, softened. "Miss Mitchell," she said. Lauren's head snapped up, startled to hear her own name from a mouth that lived on business channels and hearings she had half watched. "This is Eleanor. I do not want your career. I want your attention. You will step off this flight when we land. You will meet with a training coordinator who will walk you through the incident. You will spend a week in a unit where passengers who do not look like you are the norm. If you can come back from that with a different hand on your shoulder, we will talk again. If you cannot, we will part ways honestly. Do you understand?" Silence. Then Lauren. Small and clear. "Yes, good," Eleanor said. "Thank you for telling the truth when it got hard." Landry made another note. Monica exhaled, the first genuine breath of the last hour. Ariana ran her thumb along the sleeve's edge. "What about the cockpit?" "They have their own review," Eleanor said. "Conducted by people who are not their friends. We will not turn this into a pillory. We will turn it into a hinge," someone in row 2 whispered. "A hinge." The word landed and stayed. Eleanor's tone shifted. "Ariana, yes, you may issue directives as proxy." Ariana glanced at Monica, then at Landry, then at the passengers who were trying not to look like they were listening as hard as they were. "Fine," Ariana said. "Directive 1. Until further notice, any dispute about a paid seat gets resolved with documentation, not assumption. If the system is slow, we slow ourselves before we move the customer." "Logged," Landry said. "Directive 2. Ariana continued. "We stop using the phrase disruptive to describe people who are asking for what they paid for. We document behavior, not our feelings about it." Monica's mouth twitched again. "Logged." Directive 3, Ariana said. "When a crew member feels their instincts flare hot, they will step back for 60 seconds and call a peer. Not a subordinate, not a friend, a peer. If they cannot defend the next action without saying people like that, they will not take it. We will write the phrase people like that out of our decision tree." The junior attendant swallowed. "Logged." Ariana set the sleeve down and lifted her eyes. The cabin held her gaze the way a room holds light after a storm passes and the air goes new. "Directive 4, she said. "We apologize. Not in a way that protects us, in a way that respects who we hurt. We will stop saying, if you are offended. We will say we did this, and then we will say we are changing this, and then we will change it." Eleanor's voice hummed through the handset. Pride threaded quiet through it. "Logged," she said to herself. Ariana lowered the phone a fraction. "Anything else, Mama?" "One more," Eleanor said. "My directive, executive bonus structure, 20% tied to measured improvements in equal treatment outcomes. Start this quarter." Landry did not blink. "Logged," he said, already sending. Ariana leaned back. The overhead light haloed her hair against the window. Outside, a break in the clouds revealed a river catching sun like a blade. Eleanor's voice softened. You can put the phone down now." Ariana did. She set the handset in its cradle, gentle. The line clicked, the small finality of a period at the end of a sentence. Monica stood straighter. She did not look relieved. She looked ready. "Miss Johnson," she said, "would you like anything while we implement it?" Ariana glanced toward the galley. Lauren had stepped back, eyes rimmed red, hands folded tight. The junior attendant hovered nearby, protective in the small ways that count. "Yes," Ariana said. "Bring water to row 2, and to row 3, and to the galley." Monica nodded and moved. The cart rolled, quiet and sure. The man in 2B took the water with a mumbled thanks. The woman in 3 Ampere met Ariana's eyes and did not look away. She raised the plastic cup like a toast that did not need words. Back in the galley, Lauren accepted her water with both hands. "Thank you," she said to the junior attendant. "For what it's worth," he whispered. We all needed to hear it out loud. Landry closed the portfolio and slid it under his arm. "Section 14 is active until the board concludes review," he told Ariana. "Anything you need communicated, give it to Monica. We will not interrupt the cabin again unless it is necessary." "Good," Ariana said. "Let people fly." He nodded and stepped away. The replacement captain made another announcement. "Folks, flight time looks favorable. We should have you on the ground close to schedule." His voice held a note that had not been there earlier. Not cheer. Respect. The cabin settled. Not into comfort, into clarity. Ariana placed the sleeve back on the tray, squared the edges with the neatness her mother always said was the difference between power and noise. She rested her palms on either side of it. The plane hummed. The sky held. She turned slightly, enough for her voice to find the galley without carrying it to the whole cabin. "Monica, yes." After landing, Ariana said, "We gathered in a room. We do not gossip. We do not grandstand. We do not hide. We will write the first page of how this airline treats people from now on." Monica's answer was crisp. "Understood." Ariana looked out at the bright seam where clouds met the Sunday. "And starting today," she said, almost to herself, yet every ear caught it, "I give the orders." No one applauded. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was the kind you live through. The kind that decides what kind of person you are the next time someone tells you that you do not belong. 30,000 feet over the Midwest, the cabin felt less like a flight and more like a waiting room. The kind where everyone knows the test results are coming, but no one wants to be the first to ask. Ariana's directive still hung in the air, not loud, but present. Even in the main cabin, where most passengers had only caught pieces of the exchange, the tone had shifted. People sat up straighter. Conversations were softer, more measured. In row 12, a man in a baseball cap angled his phone just enough to record the faint hum of the intercom. He wasn't sure who the woman in 1 Ampere was, but he knew a moment when he saw one. By the time the flight reached cruising speed, his short clip, just Ariana's voice saying, "We will change this, and then we will change it," had already been texted to someone on the ground. That someone had a knack for turning stories into headlines. Lauren stayed near the galley, sleeves pushed up, hands busy with work that didn't need doing. Every so often, her eyes flicked toward Ariana, then away. The junior attendant kept a quiet shield between them, intercepting requests, managing service like a bodyguard who'd been promoted to host. Monica moved with a new precision, her eyes never far from 1 Ampere or the flight deck. She'd been in this business long enough to know when something was happening above her pay grade, but inside her responsibility. Ariana, for her part, didn't perform for the cabin. She sipped water, scrolled her phone once, then set it down as if the ground could wait. Her gaze moved slowly over the rows ahead, the people seated, the curtain drawn tight between first and business, the quiet efficiency of Monica and Landry's partnership. The first chime came just before lunch service. Monica picked up the interphone, listened, then turned to Ariana. "Ground communications," she said softly. "There's movement." Ariana's eyebrow lifted. "Who?" "2 board members," Monica said. "On site at HQ. They've seen the footage." "Already?" Monica's lips curved in something close to a smile. The ground moves fast when the wind hits it right. In the main cabin, passengers were starting to whisper names. A few had recognized Ariana from photos online charity galas, ribbon cuttings with her mother, a viral shot of her holding a mic at a panel on corporate ethics. The dots were connecting, slowly but inevitably. Back in 1 Ampere, Ariana pulled her phone closer and typed a short message. Landry's tablet vibrated in response. He read it, then nodded without a word. Lauren finally approached. Her voice was low, eyes down. "Miss Johnson, may I?" Offer you lunch? Ariana's answer was simple. Yes, and one for the woman in 3 ampere. Lauren hesitated. Of course. She turned away quickly, but not before Ariana saw the flicker, a mix of humility and the first raw scrape of understanding. From somewhere aft, a faint burst of laughter carried forward, followed by a voice saying, I'm telling you, she's the CEO's daughter. You'll see when we land. In the galley, Monica leaned toward Landry. We'll have reporters at the gate. Let them wait, Landry said. This plane lands on her timeline, not theirs. Ariana glanced at her watch. 2 hours to go. Enough time for the ripples to turn into waves. Enough time for the ground to get noisy before she stepped back onto it. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The smile was already happening somewhere far below, in a glass-walled office where 2 board members were realizing that the ownership clause wasn't just a line in a contract. It was a live wire. And Ariana had just plugged it in. The first call from the flight deck came 40 minutes before landing. Cabin crew, prepare for arrival. The voice was calm, professional, but Ariana caught the faint undercurrent. The new captain wasn't just talking about flaps and wheels. He knew what waited at the gate. Monica began her slow, deliberate walk down the aisle, checking seatbelts, lifting stray bags into overhead bins. She didn't rush, didn't let the nervous energy from the back of the plane leak into her stride. Lauren followed, subdued but steady, taking her cues from Monica's pacing. Ariana stayed still in 1 ampere, hands folded loosely on her lap. She could feel the shift, that quiet pressure that comes when a plane starts dropping toward Earth and gravity reminds you it's in charge. Outside, the clouds thinned to patches, revealing toy-sized roads and rivers. The junior attendant knelt at Ariana's seat. Miss Johnson, there's a crowd at the gate. Phones out, cameras ready. Looks like press and maybe a few people from HQ. Any family? Ariana asked. Not that I saw, he said. But he hesitated. Security's waiting too. Let them wait, Ariana said. From her seat in 3 ampere, the woman who'd recognized Eleanor earlier leaned forward. When you walk out there, they're going to make it about the drama. They'll want the clip, not the truth. That's why I have to give them both, Ariana said. 10 minutes later, the captain came on again. Flight attendants, please be seated for landing. The pitch of the engines shifted. The runway drew closer with each tilt of the nose. Monica buckled in, but her eyes stayed on Ariana. Landry closed his portfolio with a soft click and stowed it under the jump seat. Even Lauren looked toward the front, her jaw set like she knew she'd be part of the story whether she spoke or not. The wheels touched down with a firm, unapologetic thud. Reverse thrusters roared, then eased. The plane slowed, taxied, and finally rolled to a stop at the gate. The seatbelt sign went dark. Phones lit up instantly. Screens glowed as passengers sent messages, posted clips, opened cameras. Monica stood. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be deplaning shortly. Please remain seated until your row is called. No one moved. All eyes were on 1 ampere. Ariana rose, collected her bag, and smoothed the front of her jacket. She stepped into the aisle, unhurried. The curtain to the jetway was open now, and beyond it, the gleam of glass, the cluster of lenses, the red dots of recording lights. The first camera caught her the moment she stepped through. Flashes popped. Voices called her name, some guessing, some knowing. Miss Johnson, is it true? Are you taking legal action? Was this racial profiling? She stopped halfway down the jetway, the crowd's noise pressing in. Monica and Landry flanked her, not blocking, but guiding the space. Ariana raised her hand. The noise dropped, if only by a degree. Here's what you need to know, she said, voice clear enough to carry through every mic. Yes, I was told to leave my seat. No, I did not. Yes, the captain was removed. And no, this is not just my story. It's yours, if you've ever been told you don't belong where you are. The flashes intensified. Someone shouted, "Are you filing a lawsuit?" "This isn't about lawsuits," Ariana said. "It's about changing how people are treated before they ever need one." She walked forward again, and the cameras moved with her. At the gate, two suited men from HQ stood stiffly, unsure whether to greet her or get out of the way. She didn't break stride. Past the security line, past the press cordon, passengers from her flight were now pulling out their phones, recording her like she was both the headline and the aftermath. At the terminal's wide exit, she paused once more. "If you want the clip," she said, looking straight into one camera, "get this one. We changed the policy at 30,000 feet. The rest is just altitude." Then she turned and walked out into the bright chaos of the terminal, the noise chasing her like a tide that couldn't quite pull her back. By the time Ariana reached the car waiting at the curb, the board had already been summoned. Not to a call, to a room. Landry closed her door. Monica slid into the front, and the sedan pulled away from the terminal with a clean, practiced merge into traffic. The cameras didn't follow. They'd been given the airport version of a velvet rope. And security knew how to hold a line when the directive came from Eleanor Johnson's office. Ariana's phone buzzed once. A simple text from her mother. 22 minutes. They arrived at 14. The building was a glass and steel rectangle in the downtown core headquarters for a company that had never once expected to see a shareholder arrive midweek, unannounced, with the look of someone who'd just rerouted a flight without touching the controls. The elevator doors opened directly into the boardroom. No reception area, no hallway. Just carpet, light, and a table that gleamed under recessed fixtures. 9 people sat around it. The CEO, the general counsel, and 7 directors. 2 seats at the far end were empty. Eleanor Johnson occupied one a second later, walking in from a side door with the calm that comes from being expected everywhere. Ariana took the seat beside her. The CEO started first, his voice a shade too bright. "Miss Johnson, Ariana, we were just—" "No," Eleanor said. She didn't raise her voice, but it landed like a gavel. "You were not just anything. You were waiting for me to tell you whether you still have your jobs." A silence followed. Ariana let it hang. The general counsel cleared his throat. "We're aware of the incident. The footage is already everywhere." Ariana finished. "Good. Then we can skip the part where you try to minimize it." One of the directors shifted in her chair. "Miss Johnson, with respect, the captain's removal was executed under Section 14, Eleanor cut in, "which I wrote and which you approved when you wanted my capital. Do not act surprised when I use it." The CEO tried again. "We want to assure you that bias training," Ariana leaned forward, "isn't a checkbox, it's a mirror. And you can't fix a system that still thinks it can choose who belongs in first class by scanning faces instead of boarding passes." The oldest director, a man who'd been quiet until now, looked straight at her. "What do you want, Miss Johnson?" Ariana held his gaze. "Policy changes are already in motion. What I want now is structure. Permanent oversight. Independent review with authority to act, not just recommend. And a seat on this board that isn't ceremonial." The room shifted. This wasn't the PR concession they'd been bracing for. This was leverage. Eleanor rested a hand on the table, palm down. "You'll give her that seat, and you'll give her the mandate to audit any decision where passenger dignity and corporate risk intersect. If you hesitate, I'll put it to a shareholder vote, and I'll win." The general counsel scribbled something in the margin of his notes. The CEO exhaled like a man calculating how much this would cost versus how much it would cost to fight. Finally, the director who had asked the question nodded once. "Agreed." Eleanor glanced at Ariana. "Say it yourself." Ariana's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of altitude and authority. "Effective immediately, I serve as Passenger Equity Oversight Director, independent, uninterrupted. and I will not need another clause to do my job." The vote took less than 2 minutes. Unanimous. When the meeting adjourned, Eleanor stood, adjusted her jacket, and turned to her daughter. "You have the room now." Ariana looked at the board members as they gathered their papers. "Next time you wonder whether you should intervene before something escalates, remember today. And remember that some of us can move a captain faster than the wheels can hit the runway." No one argued. No one smiled. But no one would forget. The city evening wrapped itself around the glass tower as Ariana stepped out of the boardroom. The air outside the meeting was different, less polished, more human. Monica waited near the elevator, Landry just behind her, both standing like they'd been there the whole time. Eleanor didn't speak until the elevator doors closed. Only then did she turn to her daughter. "You did well." "That's not your usual metric," Ariana said. Eleanor allowed herself the smallest smile. "Number usually, I tell you whether you won." They stepped out into the lobby, the hush of carpet giving way to the marble echo of the ground floor. Outside, the sedan was waiting. No press here, Eleanor's people had made sure of that. Once they were in the car, Ariana looked out at the traffic. "Mama, did you write section 14 for me?" "I wrote it," Eleanor said. "For whoever came next. You just got here first." Ariana's eyes narrowed. "You knew this would happen." Eleanor adjusted the cuff of her sleeve. "Not the details. But the pattern? It's older than you. Older than me. People with authority who think belonging is a look instead of a fact. I couldn't stop the impulse, but I could design the consequences." The car slowed at a light. Evening pedestrians crossed in front of them, heads down against the breeze. "You could have used it yourself before now," Ariana said. "I could have," Eleanor agreed. "But I was waiting for someone who would use it without making it about revenge." Ariana thought back to the directives she'd read on the plane, to the look on Lauren's face, to the woman in 3 Ampere lifting her cup in that small, wordless toast. "Revenge is easy," she said. "Repair takes more work." "Exactly," Eleanor said softly. They drove in silence for a few blocks. Then Eleanor reached into her bag and pulled out a slim leather folder, the kind that looked like it belonged in the same breath as contracts and consequences. She passed it to Ariana. Inside, a single sheet. No legal jargon, no fine print, just a heading and a signature line. "Passenger Equity Oversight Office." Ariana read aloud. "Budget and authority to operate at your discretion. Already approved," Eleanor said. "The board thought it was your idea." Ariana let out a short laugh. "And here I thought today was improvisation." "Improvisation," Eleanor said, "is just preparation meeting an impatient moment." The car turned toward the waterfront. The lights on the water shimmered like they'd been waiting too. Ariana looked down at the folder again, then closed it. "So, what now?" Eleanor met her eyes. "Now you do the job. And every time someone tells you that you don't belong, you remind them whose plane they're on." The light changed. The car rolled forward. And somewhere, 30,000 feet above the next city, a flight attendant was glancing at a boarding pass, thinking twice before saying the words that had started it all. Because now, Section 14 had a face, and a voice, and a seat no one would dare to move. I want to thank you for staying with me until the very end of Ariana's journey. What happened on that plane wasn't just a clash over a seat. It was a reminder that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you should never have to fight for. Seeing Ariana stand her ground without rage, but with calm precision, was more than inspiring. It was a blueprint for how to turn unfairness into change. Maybe you've been in a moment like that, where you had to decide whether to step back or step forward. If this story lit even the smallest fire in you, then I believe it did its job. I hope you carry Ariana's voice with you the next time someone tries to shrink your space. If you felt moved, share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. Don't forget to like, share this story with someone who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Together we can keep telling the stories that remind us who we are and where we belong.